When I was in college, I played a lot of Ultimate Frisbee, which is probably not like crazy surprising. I mean, it's kind of my vibe, right? But like, I played a lot of Ultimate Frisbee. I actually played like on the Furman University, go FU, the Furman club team. I was like a captain from my sophomore year to my senior year. Like I loved playing Ultimate Frisbee. It was like my thing. Well, the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I was working at a summer camp for actually for youth groups doing mission trips, kind of like the mission trips we go on in the summer. And I was playing this like giant game of capture the flag on campus at Clemson University. It's in South Carolina, and go Tigers. And I was giant game of capture the flag. I jumped off this like 15 flight of stairs. I landed on my left leg and I crumbled. And at first I thought like, oh man, that just kind of hurt. That was dumb. I'll keep going. And I got up to run and like I fell over in like 3 steps. It didn't take long to realize like something was not right. And I tried to keep playing, but like my knee was the size of a grapefruit, and every like 10 steps it just like buckled. And I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't really fix it because I was working at this camp. And then I went home right before I went back to Furman for my junior year, and I went to get an MRI. And it told me what I think I kind of already knew. I had a torn ACL, which sucked. If you've ever torn an ACL, you know it's terrible. And if you haven't, don't do it. It's real dumb. But I tore my ACL, and it was the worst. And I couldn't get it fixed because I was going back to school for like the fall semester, start of junior year. So I didn't get it fixed until winter break. And then I had like 6-8 months of rehab. So I couldn't play Ultimate Frisbee my entire junior season. That was what I did. It's what I loved to do. I loved competing. And I couldn't do it. I legit didn't know who I was anymore. Yes, I went to school, I guess, for classes. I played sand volleyball, but I couldn't do that either. Like I didn't know what to do. Or even like at a deeper level, who I was. Like I still have my Furman Ultimate jersey. Yeah, repping number 3. That was a thing. Like I loved it. And I was lost. I was upset. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was like, what do I do with my life? That was legit how I was feeling. The same thing kind of happened right before I started middle school. Like legitimately 3 days before I started middle school, we moved from Northern California to Tennessee. I didn't know anybody. And I don't know if you know this, but California and Tennessee like aren't exactly the same. I was a fish out of water. I didn't have any friends. Like when I was in California, I had so many friends. I was popular. I was like good at everything. I didn't know anybody in Tennessee. I didn't know what like life was like down there. It was a totally different environment too. Like the houses looked different, the food looked different, the way people talked was totally different. I'd never heard someone say y'all in my life. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my friends were. I didn't know like how I was supposed to dress to fit in. I didn't know like how I was supposed to say things. Like in Tennessee, people said sir and ma'am. I'd never said that. That wasn't a thing I did. I didn't know who I was anymore. Isn't that true of like how we think about ourselves? Like who we are is what team we're on, or what grades we make, or who we hang out with, or what kind of shoes we wear. Like that determines whether we belong. But all that stuff can be gone in an instant, just like tearing an ACL or moving. I mean, so much of how we identify ourselves is temporary. But one thing that isn't temporary is how God sees us, how God identifies us. In the very beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, like the very first chapter, God's creating everything, and he says on the 6th day, well, let's make humans in our own image. Male and female, God created them in God's image. And at the end of it, at the end of that day, God said, it's very good. Like when God sees you, God says, you reflect me. You are made in my image. There is something that you cannot take away because you reflect the God who made you. And like that God says, it is very good. When God looks at you, I don't care what you see when you look in the mirror, but God looks in the mirror, God sees you are very good. There's a moment in this book of Psalms, it's like the longest book of the Bible. And like Psalm 139, these are like worship songs back in like old school days. The writer of Psalms writes, God, you have seen me and you know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise. If I went to heaven, you'd be there. If I went to the grave, you'd be there. There's nowhere I can go. Well, that's how God works, right? Like, God sees through all of our insecurities, our anxieties, the things that most stress us out, the things that are temporary don't matter to God. What team we're on, if we made like the super elect soccer team or just like the club neighborhood team, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Instagram filter you put on your pictures. You belong and you matter. That's how it works. God sees through all of that, and the way that God sees you is the same way that God saw us in the very beginning. You are made in my image, and you are very good. That's what we're going to talk about today in Core Group. How you reflect the God who made you, and what you see when you look in the mirror, and what God sees when God sees you. We're out.